Genghis Khan. Let's be honest, the name alone conjures up some pretty intense images, right? Thundering hooves, a world brought to its knees. But behind that legend is one of the most complex and contradictory figures in all of history. He was both a destroyer and a creator on a scale that's hard to even imagine. But to really get a handle on the world he remade, we have to start with one single, brutal number.
Okay, get this. In the span of just 1 century, the Mongol conquests wiped out an estimated 11% of the entire global population. That's over 40 million people. To put that in perspective, that single campaign might just be the biggest drop in the world's population from any single event in human history. Just let that sink in.
And this quote, I mean, whether he actually said it or not, it just perfectly nails the mindset, doesn't it? In his mind, he wasn't just some warlord. No, he was a divine instrument, a force of nature sent to, cleanse a sinful world. And that was his justification for all the carnage. So that brings us right to the big question, the one historians are still arguing about today. Was this guy a blood-soaked monster? Or was he some kind of visionary, a unifier who built a whole new world from the ashes of the old? To even begin to answer that, we've got to go back, way back to the beginning. You see, before he was the legendary Genghis Khan, he was just a boy named Temüjin. And his childhood, well, it was a brutal school of survival that basically forged the man he would become. So, look at this timeline. This isn't just a list of dates, it's a list of lessons in pure brutality. His father getting poisoned, that taught him alliances are flimsy. His own clan abandoning him, that taught him the sting of betrayal. He was forced to kill his own half-brother just so his family could survive, and then he gets enslaved and publicly shamed. I mean, this wasn't just a tough childhood. It was a forge, hammering out a worldview where any sign of weakness meant you were dead. And all that trauma, it hammered out his core philosophy, a code that was incredibly simple and absolutely final. If you were loyal to him, he'd be loyal to you for life. It didn't matter where you came from. But if you betrayed him, or if your people betrayed him, there was no second chance, no forgiveness. There was just annihilation. And this simple code, it would become the law of his entire empire. Now, this way of thinking was totally revolutionary, and it put him on a collision course with his own blood brother, Jamuka. Their fight wasn't just about power, it was a war of ideas. Jamuka, he represented the old way of doing things, power based on who your dad was, on your bloodline. But Temüjin, he offered something radical, power based on what you could do. He'd take a commoner and make him a general. He built an army that was bound together by skill and loyalty, not by who your great-grandpa was. And you know what? His vision won, big time. In 1206, after decades of brutal civil war, all the Mongol tribes came together and they gave him a new name, Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. He hadn't just beaten his rivals, he'd created an entire nation out of a bunch of scattered, warring clans. So now he's the universal ruler. And he's facing this huge paradox. How do you build an empire? Well, he did it with two tools that seem like total opposites, law and terror. Let's start with the first tool, Yassa, his legal code. And honestly, for its time, this thing was incredibly progressive. It guaranteed religious freedom at a time when Europe was literally burning heretics at the stake. It protected merchants, creating the safest trade routes the world had ever seen. And the law was king. It applied to everybody, from the lowest peasant right up to the Khan himself. But then you have his other tool, this doctrine of annihilation. His whole military strategy was built on a really simple, brutal ultimatum. Submit or die. And this wasn't just random violence. No. This was calculated psychological warfare. He knew that terror was a weapon. All those stories of horror, the infamous pyramids of skulls, they were designed to break his next enemy's will to fight before his army even showed up. And the scale of it all, it's just staggering. I mean, in the city of Merv alone, accounts from the time claim his soldiers executed 700,000 people over 4 days. This was destruction on an industrial scale, all just to make a point. And yet, and this is the crazy part, amidst all that horror, the guy was an absolute genius at building a state. His army? A model of efficiency, all organized in simple units of 10. His administration was a pure meritocracy. And his postal system, it was basically the world's first information superhighway. Messages could cross the entire continent in a matter of weeks. And he was a master adapter. He'd conquer a people and immediately adapt their best technology, like siege engines for his own army. So, what's the final verdict on this guy? A butcher on one hand, a brilliant administrator on the other. What's his lasting impact? Well, his legacy is every bit as contradictory as his life was. I mean, it's a perfect paradox. For every good thing you can point to, like the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol peace, that made the Silk Road safe for the first time in centuries, well, there's a devastating consequence, like those very same trade routes helping to spread the Black Death across the globe. He connected the world, for sure, but the price of that connection was just immense. And his legacy isn't just in the history books, it's in our DNA. Literally, a 2003 genetic study found that something like 16 million men alive today, think about that for a second, that's 1 out of every 200 men on the entire planet, is a direct descendant of Genghis Khan. His empire might be gone, but his DNA is woven right into the fabric of humanity. And here is one of the most unbelievable, ironic twists in all of history. By killing so many people, the Mongol conquests led to massive depopulation. All that farmland went back to being forest on such a huge scale that it actually scrubbed an estimated 700 million tons of carbon from the atmosphere. It caused a brief, man-made global cooling event. He might just be the single most effective and, without a doubt, the most brutal climate activist in history. Even his death is wrapped in mystery. He died on campaign in 1227, but to this day, nobody knows for sure how. Was it battle wounds, sickness, a fall from his horse? We don't know. He was buried in a secret, unmarked grave, and its location was guarded so fiercely that it has never, ever been found. And that final mystery just adds to his larger-than-life, almost mythical status.
Which brings us back to this final, haunting question. Genghis Khan brought order, he brought law, trade, and communication to a totally fractured world. He built a system that, in a lot of ways, laid the groundwork for the globalized world we live in today. But he did it all through a campaign of terror and violence that is almost impossible to comprehend. So can supreme order ever be justified by supreme violence? That is the dark, complicated, and unforgettable legacy of the man who remade the world.